But yeah, just being like with my older brother, there was a lot of kind of comparing myself to him. So yeah, a little bit of insecurity there as far as that, as far as our schooling. And then there's other areas where I've had insecurities, like even with, like I mentioned, in middle school with my looks, and a lot of it had to do with actually, it's going to kind of lead into my next question. So, my next question is, can other people play a role in making you feel insecure?
Uh, I feel like they can. I mean, I feel like, well, I don't really know about with school for me. Like, no one's ever made me feel insecure. That's all like on my own. But like my looks and stuff, another thing I've been insecure about is my height because I'm 4'9", so I'm really short. And people all the time ask me how tall I am, which is fine. But then when I tell them, they'll like chuckle or something, and I'm like, why is that funny? like I don't know. So it kind of makes me feel insecure, but that's about it, really.
Yeah, sometimes yeah we can be our own worst enemy. From time to time we can be our own worst enemy. Then like that's where the insecurity comes in. So that makes sense. Yeah, that can happen. Yeah. How about you, Tony?
Um, so I know that like sometimes again, like, when you're talking about yourself, making yourself feel insecure, I mean, that can be just from you comparing yourself to other people, whether they're actively trying to or not. I know sometimes people say things like as a joke, but it doesn't always come off that way. Um, and I mean, I've been guilty of that too. I've said some mean and hurtful things, not even realizing they were mean and hurtful. Um, and until someone comes to me and says basically that that was really upsetting to them or they felt really bad about it, which, you know, um, I wish more people would do that. And I feel like, people could have that kind of communication. You could resolve a lot of things and maybe be friends. But like I know one example which was just so weird. Because a couple of people have actually commented on it. So I grew up with a lot of really I really had some hard time with basic motor skills and like my posture and my um what is it? My dexterity. It wasn't very good. I had to have classes at a very young age and I was still like walking into walls and stuff and tripping a lot. And I don't know what it was, but there's some sort of developmental, weird posture thing that I had going on, where like my toes would point out a lot whenever I would like stand or walk. And I remember somebody, you know, made a like casual remark about it. Like there were two different occasions, two different people in high school. They were like, wow, you walk like a triangle. Or the other time somebody was like, you walk like a duck. And I was just like, it was just like, why you gotta point that out, Um, it just it felt like, I mean, obviously doesn't nobody means anything by it, but it's just like you kind of like internalize these things. And I think that sometimes when people point out, even if it's something completely innocuous or something that's not even bad, it's whatever's different about you. Um, People point that out, especially in front of other people. It can be a big source of an insecurity and make you just feel really bad. Um, and again, I've been on both sides of that. Um, and I try to I try to be open and be like, okay, people come talk to me if I said something that's bad. I think that a part of being strong and working through your insecurities and getting through on the other side of that, now more in your adult life, you can forget what it's like to have been in that position. So it's one of those things to try to be mindful of too.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually, good that you brought that up, though. That you've been the one that has received that, that those kind of comments, but then you've also been the past kind of given that to where even if you didn't intentionally mean it, it could have led to someone kind of feeling insecure about something, whether of the comment that you made. And I definitely can relate to that. I've been on both sides of the spectrum as well, to where I was definitely the one that has given a comment to where I could even regret it to this day, because I know that I may have said something that really hurt somebody's feelings and made them feel kind of insecure about. It could be anything, whether it's the way they look or the way they carry themselves, or what they're doing in their job or anything like that. So, as there's that, and then I've definitely been in a situation where somebody has definitely made me insecure. There's kind of three big things that I have felt like insecure about, like due to other people. Like one, I feel like a lot has to do with like my body weight. I feel like my weight fluctuates like every now and then. Sometimes I have my good moments where I feel like losing weight, I feel healthier, and then there's times where I gain a little bit more weight, and then I feel like well, it's not as bad now. I don't feel like people point it out, but definitely in middle school, I feel like a lot of people would point out that like I was a little bit heavier in my middle school days, so especially my eighth grade year. And I remember this one kid specifically. Um, he was like one of my only friends that like I had. I didn't really have that many friends in eighth grade, and and anyway, like he would constantly like poke me on the side, and he would be like, poke the fat boy," and it kind of like made me feel really down about that because I was thinking like if already see myself as not the skinniest or not the thinnest, person or the healthiest, and he's pointing it out basically for other people to hear in gym class. It definitely made me feel a lot more insecure and humiliated in that way for sure. So there's that as far as like my weight. It's one big thing, and then another one. I feel like this topic is sort of changing now, but like I feel like it almost kind of goes back to somewhat to what me and Donna has talked about before, like almost like an expectation on like men is almost like you have to be like this strong, like you can't cry, you can't have feelings, and if you do have feelings, and like you're a wimp and you're weak and stuff like that. So I almost feel like that even back in middle school there was that almost expectation that like you're only popular if you play basketball and football and baseball, and the losers are the ones that aren't involved in that. They're the nerds, and they're in the band, they're in the choir, like they name all these other things that definitely shouldn't be talked down on, but they definitely would talk down on that. And I'm seeing more progress with that now, as far as allowing men to have a little bit more emotion now. I think it's definitely okay. I definitely am one that gets very emotional, even about even with certain movies I watch all the time. I still get emotional about those ones, but almost kind of like I guess back to kind of my insecurity, just feeling like I'm not man enough to be a real man, I guess, if that makes any sense. Like, I almost feel like that was kind of a expectation that, like, because I didn't play sports year round, or because I wasn't in I was one that always struggled with like doing pull ups. I was that one that couldn't even get one pull up every time that when we would have class, where they would make everybody do these pull ups to see how many you can do. I guess kind of like a your health or fitness kind of test. I don't know, but I could never do one, and I just kind of felt like that meant that I'm weak, and that I'm not as much of a man. Like I'm not as manly as this other person that can just do it for 10 minutes straight or whatever, even longer than that probably. So, plus I guess there's that kind of insecurity of almost feeling like I'm not man enough to be a man. So there's that. And then my last thing, it's almost an insecurity of almost not feeling like that like I'm wanted or like I belong somewhere. And I still feel like this one still can happen for me. And crazily, like in a weird way, you would think it wouldn't happen here, but it actually happens for me a lot in church, weirdly. Like I go to a pretty big church. I've been going there for 10 years now. And even still to this day, like I could be in a big crowd and still feel lonely. Like I almost feel like people still like don't really make an effort to get to know me. It's almost more of just a cordial, hey, how are you? Good, how about you? Good. And then they kind of go about their way. Or if I feel like I'm finally talking to somebody longer than 10 seconds, then it seems like somebody else will jump into the conversation, and then it turns into that person that I was talking to that person that just jumped in, and then I'm kind of boxed out of the conversation. It seems like it always happens to me. It seems like where I always get jumped out of the conversation, like, or I get boxed out, or I know this. I mean, it may not even be intentional, but it seems like that just so happens to me all the time at church. Or I mean, we've even me and one of my brothers goes to the same church. We had a moment where like we had said like good morning to people, and they'll just walk right past us, and they look right at us, and they just walk right past us. And even like also in the choir at my church. And there have been times where like I'll sit down in a chair, and I've had it happen where at least 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 different people have done this where they just get up and they move to a different spot, like in the choir. So it makes it seem like, okay, like I guess you don't want to sit by me. Maybe it's because maybe I don't think I am, but maybe I'm tone deaf. Like maybe I'm a bad singer, but I think more of it. I don't know if it's just because a lot of people in our choir is a little older. So I don't know if it's just because like they want to sit by people that they've been sitting by for all these years, or maybe it's because I don't know who you are, and I don't want to get to know you. Like, so I'm going to move to another spot to talk to somebody I do know. So, but it just seems like I always end up getting the short end of the stick, like in a way, like when it comes to church. My conversations always get interrupted. Um, I've never seen people move from other people in the choir, but when I sit down, it's like people move when I sit, and so, but I don't know like what it has to do with anything. So that brings all 3 of those things. I know I feel like I'm very long-winded with this answer, but all 3 of those things has kind of led me to feeling insecure about myself, wondering like, do these people even want me here at this church? Like I've even thought about moving to a different church just because well, a few things with it, but just in general, like as far as the people in that church. I mean, there are a few that are really nice to me, but I feel like a lot of them, uh, you know, don't even want to get to know me. But then they make these statements of like the key to a big church is a small group. But then even in the small groups, I feel like I feel out of place. Like I go in there trying to talk to people, and then I almost feel like whenever I talk, the conversation stops, and it's like, okay, like somebody else could be speaking the whole time, and conversations keep flowing. But then when someone asks me the question, and I'll answer their question, and it just kind of stops. Like the conversation doesn't continue. It's like weird, but yeah, so like I guess those are like situations where I've definitely felt insecure as far as church, and even with school, as far as back in middle school and high school. Well, high school mainly in my freshman year, but after my freshman year it got better. So I still even to this day have like insecurities regarding feeling like or wondering if I belong or feel like am I even wanted here.